welcome to the Legacy Interview series from Women's Centers International, WCI. Today, we will begin with a 6-part series. Each week, you'll hear stories and see images from one woman's journey in Africa that inspired an international movement. I'm here today with Susan Burgess-Lent, the founder and executive director for WCI. Today, we're going to talk about the roots of WCI. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you. So we're just going to jump right in. Susan, what kind of life experiences led you to create WCI?
Well, there were two women who influenced me greatly. One was my mother, who, despite the fact that she had 7 children to raise, found time to volunteer in the community. She had a very strong sense that if you have what you need, then you figure out how to give back. The other was my daughter, and I was seeing the troubles mounting for women in the world, and I wanted to be a part of the effort to make that better for her.
And how did you develop your career in this direction?
I had thought I was going to have a lifetime career in television, but I got bored with it, and I volunteered at the American Red Cross International Services. I lived in Washington, D.C. at the time. It was also the time of the Rwanda genocide. We were very busy. And I got a whole different sense that this is a huge world with a lot of trouble in it, and that there are things that I can do. But the really pivotal career experience for me was meeting a man named Suleiman Jiddo. He and I met through a mutual friend, and we clicked right away. And over the course of the next 5 years, he provided me with access in Darfur that I don't think anybody had. Because he was native, he knew people, he could make a phone call and things would happen. So that was a pivotal experience, and really that was the seed of women's centers, because he really gave me free rein to see what the problems were and come back and say, here's what I think we should do.
Describe how you created the actual center. It couldn't have been simple.
No, it was extremely complicated, and I like complicated things, so it was good for me. But getting there was a logistical problem. I had to be invited by the government, which didn't really want people like me showing up. And I had to go through Nairobi, Khartoum, fly to increasingly smaller planes to get to a place called El Fasher, which is the capital of North Darfur, and then take a helicopter to Kasab IDP camp. IDP is internally displaced persons. He could have picked one of 150 of them at the time, but this one had connections for Suleiman. His family lives there. 25,000 people in the middle of nowhere, really. Creating it was first go take a look, see what's happening here and how can we use what's here and what do we need to bring. That was the first agenda. How can we create a safe place? The first center, oh my God. I look at the picture and I think, oh, well, you start small. It was a tent. It was a tent.
Right.
Surrounded by acacia bushes. And the women came. The word gets around. And we started to develop a conversation about what can we do here to help you. It came from them, all of it.
Tell me some of the most profound experiences of the women that you've met.
Oh, most of the women in the camp had been chased out of their homes, which were then burned by militia. They had lost everything. They'd lost all of their possessions, their livelihoods, in many cases, a lot of their family. Even rudimentary things like going out to fetch firewood because that's how they cooked. They had fires. Was a high risk activity. They would be raped more often than not if they went out. And as the firewood disappeared, they had to go farther and farther, which meant they were more and more at risk. So these are women who lived a very simple rural life and were thrust into a world where everything was scarce. The women came because they saw it first as a safe place and second as a place where they could socialize. They were largely illiterate. They were desperate for income because they only got rations from the World Food Program. And those are the places that we started: livelihoods, literacy. They already knew how to make these gorgeous baskets, which I think are high art. They used for household keeping food in. And we opened markets to sell them so that they could be paid. That was huge for them. So many women got involved. The second thing was that there were teachers in the camp. And so we set up classrooms. We brought in chalkboards and chalk and writing implements. The women were totally capable of running the place. I only came once a year, but I was in constant contact. I had the most wonderful translator, a young woman my daughter's age. And she would communicate with them, say what was going on, what they needed. And my next trip, I would be bringing it. They taught me everything I know about how women's centers should operate because they had to do it. They had to. One of the members of the staff, her name was Fatia. We had a meeting before I left on my last trip. I said, people, what will happen when you go home, inshallah? You will go home one day. We've created this place. What does it all mean? And Fatia looked at me like I'd suddenly gone stupid. And she said, we will create women's centers. And I thought, oh, they got it. It's theirs. They own it. They taught me everything. And she's telling me what I'm supposed to do. The model is simple to me. And on the one hand, it's an innovation, but on the other, it's a return to a tradition that has served women well for centuries, which is you gather together in a safe place. You can work there, you can hang out, you can do whatever you want, but you're with your sisters. And that creates some bonds that are enduring. You got the same key needs in all of these kind of resource-poor environments. You create a center, you create support, you create protection, and what comes out is women with a sense that they have some control over their lives.
That is a beautiful legacy that can actually permeate throughout the world and make the world a better place.
Every major city and probably a lot of small towns ought to have one, and ought to be run by a real kick-ass woman, in my opinion.
That's right. You know it. So I'll just give you the last word. So take us to our close.
Well, you come down to the point where why should we have women's centers? The least served women. We have to shed the illusion that they don't matter, that poverty and conflict, which creates poverty, is none of our concern. These are women who are wellsprings of imagination, of great talent we don't even know about yet. And if we leave them stranded, we leave them without resources, we'll never know what we've lost. And we can't afford to lose any good woman right now. So, women's centers are where individuals change, they unite with one another, and that the healing and the powering up is happening for women to whom our destiny is really tied. We have to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you once again, Susan Burgess-Lent. Your contributions help women transform their lives in the most challenging environments. We'll be back next week to hear about the amazing place Baraka Women's Center in Nairobi, Kenya.